Hi, my name is Detective Pikachu.
My name's Detective Skitty.
Try again.
What? Why can't I be Detective Skitty?
Nobody knows what a skitty is. It doesn't have.
Everybody knows what a
punch.
skitty is.
That's not true. Unless you're a Pokemon fan.
Okay, fine. Do it again.
Or you are a fan of that.
No, do it again.
If you're a fan of that meme where a skitty and a Wailord have sex, then maybe you know what it is.
What the fuck are you talking about? Okay, do
that
it
was
again.
like an. Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Detective Pikachu.
And I'm that Psyduck that's also in that movie.
And this is No Nerds Allowed. That's really good, Adeline.
And there are no nerds allowed. I have a headache and I ask for a massage or something.
Yeah, and then Ryan Reynolds is like, I don't want to have to give a massage to a duck.
Yeah.
And then he says
I'm
he
a
Because
mouse.
he's Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, and then he says fuck.
Why hasn't anybody done that? Remember after Age of Ultron came out and there were all these edits that people did of putting lines from Robert California from The Office over Ultron?
Oh, yeah.
Why hasn't anybody done that for Deadpool and Detective Pikachu yet?
I
want that
know.
on my desk by 5 o'clock.
Well, because the whole thing is Detective... I guess, no, it wasn't. Detective Pikachu was PG. I thought it was PG-13, so I thought they could slip one F word in there.
No.
But they didn't, because they're
No.
cowards. Did you know that Lord of the Rings is PG-13? So they technically could have slipped in one F word, but they didn't.
Yeah, I saw that post on Tumblr also.
Yeah, everyone was like, where's the best place to put the F word in Lord of the Rings? And it's
In
really
fairness,
funny.
It was very funny.
Yeah, fuck you.
What was the one
You
where it's
brought up
like
a
Legolas?
meme where a Skitty and a Narwhal have sex, so
Yeah,
I'm not
no,
the problem here.
The joke was that, there's breeding, sort of categories in Pokemon where it's, different Pokemon get put into different sort of, subsections of, what kind of thing they are. And those kinds of Pokemon can, have an egg together, but if they're from different ones, they can't. But Skitty and Wailord are in the same one, so people like to make jokes about a Skitty and a Wailord having sex. How have you been?
I've been good.
Good.
Yeah,
You want to know? I've got a lot of energy today.
Okay.
And it's because I drank a soda that has Guiarna in it.
What is a Guiarna?
That's a really good question. I know that the bottle had the word energy printed on it.
Okay.
I looked it up, and apparently Guiarna is something that they're marketing as a healthy alternative to caffeine. It's it gives you those same endorphins or whatever that caffeine gives you. Except a cursory Google search reveals that Guiarna is just it's not BS, but Guiarna is just a plant that has caffeine in it.
Yeah,
It's just still caffeine.
Yeah. No, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, remember when you had a Red Bull Italian soda and listened to All of American Idiot and cried?
Yeah, that was during my pre-calculus class in my junior year of high school.
I think that's literally my favorite story about you, is that one time you got a Red Bull Italian soda, drank all of it, and decided to listen to All of American Idiot and cried in your calculus class.
Yeah. That's the thing about me is that, a lot of the times, when
You've
I
got
drink
big
caffeine,
emotions and you're not afraid of them.
Right. Well, when I drink a lot of caffeine, if I'm doing something, just now, I drank a lot of caffeine and I was, filming a videos and I'm recording a podcast. So I'm, expending that energy,
Yeah.
But if I'm just, sitting around, then, that energy doesn't translate into, physical energy. It just translates into, really strong emotional energy for me. So, usually that just means that, I think about death a lot, but sometimes that means that I cry when I listen to American Idiot.
Anyway.
Do you want to ask me what movie we watched today?
What movie did we watch today, Jackson?
Today we watched Thoroughbreds, which is a movie I talked about earlier on the podcast that you expressed interest in, so I decided I wanted to watch it. Okay, so I decided on this movie for 3 very specific reasons. The first of which is that I'm always trying to like break out of the sort of niche that we've carved for ourselves of watching like blockbuster children's movies, because for some reason that's like all we do on this podcast for some reason.
They're the only ones I have an opinion about.
Yeah, fair enough. But also, I want to work on... This is just a movie that I really like, you know, that I'm not quite as critical of as most of the movies that we do on this show. And I want to work on being more eloquent when I'm describing things that I like versus just when I'm criticizing movies, which I feel like is something that maybe both of us can work on. And the third reason was something I don't remember, so get back to me on that.
Some other third
thing. I guess it was just that I mentioned it before and you said that you were interested in seeing it.
Well, because the concept is, you said it was 2 horse girls plot their friend's stepdad's murder. And all of those were enough funny words combined in a sentence that I was like, hell yes. But then the movie was like serious, and I was like, oh, well.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a comedy. No. It's like a dark comedy.
I really like this movie. It's a cool movie. It's a beautiful movie. I love how it was shot. I like the cinematography. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. I think probably about 90% of why I love this movie so much is just how great the score is.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot to look it up beforehand. I should have. I'm going to look up who wrote the music for it.
John Williams.
It's not John Williams.
I've
been burned before on saying something wasn't John Williams, and it was John Williams, though.
It's Danny Elfman.
Hold on.
It's John Williams and Danny Elfman. They had a baby.
That's not true. John Williams is about 300 years old, so I don't think that's...
still make sweet love.
I don't know. I don't know. I guess there's no male equivalent to menopause, so I guess maybe he could have.
Okay.
Eric Friedlander did the music for this movie. Who else? He also did not many other movie soundtracks. Mostly he's just a jazz musician. Well, and that's another thing that's interesting about this movie. The director, Cory Finley, is a playwright, typically. And he wrote this movie as a play.
I can see it.
Yeah, but then decided he wanted to make a movie instead. And that was sort of one of the dialogues that was going through my head on this watch, because I was thinking a lot about, like, should this maybe have just been a play?
I mean, yeah, there's not that many locations, and there's not that many characters, so I feel like it was definitely written as, like, a 2-woman play.
Yeah.
Like, I totally see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's defo like a black box kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the conceit of this movie is that Anya Taylor-Joy of Split and The Witch and the upcoming blockbuster New Mutants, which is definitely coming out someday.
Oh, man. New Mutants.
Olivia Cook of Ready Player One fame play these 2, like, rich white girls. Like, they're horse girls.
Yeah.
And Anya Taylor-Joy hates her stepdad super a lot, and they kind of just decide that they're gonna kill him. That's what they're gonna do. And a lot of the movie revolves around Olivia Cook's character just being, like, a real and true sociopath, like somebody who doesn't have any sort of empathy for people around her.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that sort of... I don't want to say rubs off on Anya Taylor-Joy, because one of the things that I really like about this movie is how, like, Anya Taylor-Joy ends up being more murderous than Olivia Cook is by the end of this movie. And that's what's sort of interesting. It's like their murderous intent, they both have it, but it's very different. You know? Yeah. Like, Olivia Cook's character is more like, oh, well, it's... it's just practical for us to kill this guy, you know? Yeah. Like, why not kill this guy? But then when it starts to get hard, she says, like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't because it's just not working out. But Anya Taylor-Joy is like, no, we have to kill my stepdad.
Well, yeah, look, you're laughing. It's not a joke, Jackson. I don't know why you think this movie's so funny. It's not a funny movie.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's this, like, subtle dark comedy. It's definitely there.
It's looking at evil from a from a perspective without morals and then looking at it at a perspective with emotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why when it gets hard, she goes, well, it's like, it's not worth anymore. Who cares? And since she has that urge to do it, she has the motivation, she has that emotion that pushes her to do it when common sense would say not to. Right,
exactly. No, and I mean, when you talk about dark comedy, it's like, this is a comedy in the same sense that Fight Club is a comedy. Like, it's not laugh out loud funny, but there's like sort of a, I don't know, almost like farcical humor to it in a certain kind of way. Don't pretend like I'm a crazy person. This movie is billed as a dark comedy on all movie websites. That's what this movie is.
The concept of it is, but like literally from the first shot, it's like so clearly not. Like I don't get any comedic beats throughout this whole film. Like,
you didn't think the stepdad was funny at all?
No, I thought he was like realistic asshole.
Yeah, but there's that moment. Okay, what about when they're teaching each other how to cry and the stepdad just walks in and is like, I just need to get my juice.
Dude, that dude is so creepy that to me it wasn't funny because it was because he's the stepdad. We've established he's the stepdad. We've established that we don't like him, and he's walked in on them doing something weird. So the fact that I think that he's going to do something bad. Yeah. It wasn't funny because men are scary.
Okay.
I get this movie was so... It's not like other movies. It's not like other movies. Right. So it's definitely, like, it feels like an independent film. Like, it's weird enough that it feels like an independent film. And so, I don't know. I feel like the dark comedy didn't hit me as hard because it's weird. It's weird. It's weird.
Gotcha. So you're saying it was harder to contextualize because it was so...
Yeah.
Like, just sort of different than what you're used to.
Yeah. Especially because you already talked about the soundtrack, but it's because the soundtrack is so weird and jarring. It's like these African, like, drums and animal sounds.
I love the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's super cool, but it immediately sets you on edge. So if a funny situation is happening, I kind of lose the funny situation because I'm losing my mind over these African drums.
Right. I am such a sucker for, like, steady percussion in movie soundtracks. That's part of the reason why I love Daniel Pemberton so much as a composer, because he's constantly pushing like a rock drum kind of sound, and that is like not exactly the same, but kind of similar to what this movie's soundtrack does, because it's always got like this really driving beat to it, which I think is just, I don't know, it gives such an urgency and such an energy into any scene that you utilize it in.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool. Not to mention, I also want to point out there's a moment in this soundtrack where there's like this violin that comes in that's like mimicking the sound of a horse whinny.
Oh, yeah.
Did you catch that? There's this moment where this violin is like, woo! It's really good. It's a super good soundtrack. As far as my notes, the first thing I have written down, what did you just send me?
Nothing, don't worry about it.
Just a gif of a horse. Okay, cool. Why are you searching horse gifs in the middle of our podcast?
What are you talking about? Why wouldn't I be doing that? Do you know me?
One of the things that this movie does a handful of times that I think is really cool is just sort of these general like shot reverse shot sort of things. But typically when you're setting up shots like that, you put the person on the opposite side of the screen from the direction they're facing, so they have plenty of like headroom, you know? Mm-hmm. They're looking towards the majority of the screen. But this movie does sort of the opposite. It puts their heads facing like directly off screen. They're like on the opposite side of the screen that they normally would be. Mm-hmm. And it has this really weirdly jarring effect. It's like the way my professor put it was like, imagine a picture of somebody just sprinting and they're at like the very edge of the frame. Like there's something weirdly off-putting about it.
Yeah.
And it takes this really sort of benign interaction between these two girls and it just makes it, there's something wrong with it, you know?
Yeah. No, I just feel like how that's what the whole movie is like, because like thinking about the stuff that like actually happens in this film, like scene by scene, like honestly not a lot happens. Like, it's a lot of talking and a lot of character stuff, but, like, if you were, like, making, like, a list of, like, things that they do, it's a pretty short list.
Right.
But that tension and that uncomfortableness and that weirdness gets built up, well, like, first of all, through the music, and then second of all, on the way they frame these girls in a way that makes you uncomfortable even before you learn that one of them is a sociopath.
Right, yeah. And the next thing I've written down is just that Olivia Cooke is so, like, powerful in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, that very first interaction between the two of them where she's, like, taking that sword off the wall, and she's just like, is this your sword? Like, it's so good. Like, she just exerts this, like, absolute confidence in, like, this really, really interesting way.
Well, yeah, because he's a sociopath.
Yeah, exactly. She just doesn't fucking give a shit about anything or anyone. Like, literally. And just another moment in this movie that I think is very funny. And I just wanted to note also, like, how different her performance in this movie is from her one in Ready Player One. I know that you haven't seen it, but she plays, like, the just sort of, like, ingenue romantic interest.
Yeah.
She's, you know, the girl with the big anime eyes, you know?
Yeah.
And then she shows up in real life, and, oh no, she's got a horrible deformity on her face, but in reality that just means that she has, like, kind of a scar on her cheek that she covers up with her hair, and you're like, this is nothing. Regardless, like, she's just this very pretty, like, she's, like, this total, everybody talks about how she's a manic pixie dream girl. That's just, like, the character. She's, like, this ingenue dream girl in Ready Player One. And her performance in that and her performance in this are so, like, stellarly different, like, especially in her voice. Like, her voice is just, like, so much deeper in this movie, and it's so cool to me. And I also have written down that the stepdad is just really great in this movie.
Yeah, he's so off-putting, like, ew.
You saying you would have killed him too if he was your stepdad?
Yes. And if he yelled at my mom, I would kill him.
Okay, here's just another moment I wrote down because I thought was funny.
Okay,
There's that
cool.
moment where Olivia Cooke is, like, coming out of the shower after that first, like, weird exchange that they have between the two of them. And she's, like, kind of making faces in the mirror. And she gives this smile that's just, like, this super weird, like, wrong smile. I don't know what it is. There's just something really funny about it to me. Like, just
she was trying to look like the other girl. She had her bangs and everything. That was the whole thing.
But yeah, and there's a handful of moments where she's, like, where she sort of, in trying to, like, emulate emotion, she gets things, like, just a little bit wrong. Like, her giving that weird smile in the mirror, like, oh, I look like my friend, is kind of funny. And then there's this moment later where she's calling somebody, like, a business, and they pick up the phone, and she's just like, hey, how's it going? The person on the other end is like, good, how can I help you? Like, you know, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's just especially funny to me because I can relate to that experience being on the other end of that. I've worked at jobs where I've had to answer phones the last, like, 3 years, and, like, every once in a while when I pick up the phone, I'm like, hey, this is Jimmy John's or whatever, and they're just like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, not a whole lot, I'm working right now, what's up with you? You know?
Hey, what's up? This is Jimmy John's. So the answer is it's going pretty bad. Because I'm working at Jimmy John's.
Yeah, I'm working at Jimmy John's. Just order some food, please.
Yeah,
just
how
tell
good
me what
do you
want
think
me to
it
bring
could
you.
be going? You know who you're calling.
And
Also,
okay.
Jimmy John is a big hunter, just like the guy who gets murdered in this movie.
Oh, that's true.
That's the first thing they do to establish that he's an asshole. So just to say that he's a big game hunter, which, like,
Right.
I get,
Yeah.
but
I was gonna say it is a little bit on the nose, but, like, true.
Yeah.
It's very effective in how
Yeah.
on the nose it is. And okay, just one other thing going back to, like, dark comedies, I have noticed a lot of the time with movies like this, movies like Fight Club or Fargo, they get funnier the more times you watch them.
very, very true.
And I've seen this 3 times now, I think. And you know what? And I'm thinking back at the first time I watched it, I probably didn't really think it was very funny at all.
Yeah. So stop doinking on me.
Sorry, well, I'm not. I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm going back. I'm going back.
I'm trying to assume that you're not a total loser.
Yeah, well, I'm adding an addendum.
Addendum.
my previous doinking on you, to use your terminology.
Anyway.
I'm rescinding a previous doink.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the earlier moments in this movie, while they're still just sort of getting to know each other, they're just sitting on the couch watching this movie where this actress is crying. First of all, it's the only instance I could think of in a movie where, like, someone watches a movie and they're not just totally bludgeoning you with the themes of the movie based on what movie they're watching.
Or they're
Go ahead.
Or they're making a point about the character, but in the most ham-fisted way possible. Yeah. I don't know, if they had been trying to make her a manic pixie dream girl and she was watching old movies, or she was watching Fight Club, then that would be
right. Yeah.
But it's no, they're just watching old movies because they're people and sometimes they watch movies.
Yeah. But so this moment comes where they're talking about oh, she's not. They do this weird thing in this movie where they talk about fake crying. They say using the technique, and you can feel that the technique is in capital letters.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of dumb. It's a weird way to talk about that,
it's
but whatever.
Italicized.
Yeah, exactly. But she's oh, she's just using the technique, and then Anya Taylor-Joy is well, okay, it's not really that easy to just cry like that. And then she turns around and Olivia Cooke is just has tears streaming down her face, and it's what the fuck? It's so crazy.
Oh, yeah.
That performance is so wild because you're watching her the whole time and she just starts and real tears just start to stream down her face in that instant, and then she just stops just as quickly, and you're what the fuck? That was so creepy and weird.
Yeah.
What do you have written down in your notes, Adeline?
So do you want me to actually tell you what I have written down, or do you want me
Yes.
to okay, so first one is did she kill the horse with three question marks, and then later you find out that she does, so I wasn't going to bring it up, but I guess I will now, Jackson.
Okay.
The next I wrote, the music is weird, which it is, but it's really cool. And then I wrote, these girls are 12, which they are. And then I wrote down, I hate the stepdad, and I do. And then I wrote down that movies always have these teen parties, and I've never seen anything like them. I thought we were, as a society, we were past conveying high school in an unrealistic way. But,
Right.
Have you ever been to a party in high school where there's 10 billion teens there? They're all drinking. There's lots of very colorful lights. It's at a rich kid's house, and you personally hate being there. Because that happens in every single teen movie, and I don't know why.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think our teenage experience was precisely the universal one.
No.
I don't think that never happens.
But it's just I guess the only other time I've seen it is in To All the Boys I've Loved Before, but it's almost literally the exact same scene in that other movie too.
No, I mean, right off the top of my head, I'm thinking about Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm thinking about Sky High. I don't know why I'm thinking about Sky High, but I am.
Yeah, why are you thinking about Sky High?
Because I just remember it's that total house party trope of the nerdy lead is throws a party at his house, but they start thrashing it, and he's oh no, God, this guy's got cake on his fingers and he's climbing up the wall. Stop that!
My dad is a guy.
And okay, you know what I remember about that scene really vividly?
Okay.
I remember watching it on TV at age probably 9 or 10. This is a Disney Channel original movie, mind you. I'm watching it in the living room.
Our viewers know what Sky High is, Jackson.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm watching it with my parents, but I think my mom is just kind of in and out in the room, And they get to that house party scene, and my mom starts getting weirdly upset about it, and walks over to the TV, and she covered up the TV with the jacket she was wearing for a little while. And I remember just being this is on the Disney Channel, Mom. What do you think is about to be so inappropriate that you don't want me to see? And she was Jack, they're just teenagers partying, and I don't know where this is gonna go.
That seems like a mom thing to do.
Were you there for that?
No.
I remember that so vividly.
Hold on. Franklin. Sorry, there was a little boy on his bike outside and Franklin couldn't handle it.
So yeah, that was my Sky High story. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so speaking of that house party scene, this is where we're introduced to Anton Yelchin's character. I don't know the names of any of the characters in this movie.
No, I have no idea what any of them are named. One of them is Amanda. I don't know which one.
Yes, true. I was trying to remember which one was Amanda. Couldn't do it.
I think it's the sociopath. I think that's Amanda.
But Anton Yelchin, so this was the last movie that Anton Yelchin was in before he died. Or that was released before he died.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, like, these kinds of movies, I'm always, obviously, like, inevitably sort of get praise from the actor who just died, because people, like, want to, like, remember him fondly and are excited about seeing him one last time. And there's always a part of me that's like, okay, but were they really that good? Or, or is it just because they died that people speak so highly of this performance? And this and The Dark Knight both are movies where I always think that, but then when I watch it, I'm like, oh, fuck, Heath Ledger really was really fucking good in Dark Knight. And this is another one, like, Anton Yelchin's really great in this.
Well, because he plays the most skeeviest character on the planet.
Yeah. And I like the way that he's so, like, blatantly contrast to, like, all these kids at this party who are so, like, uptight and, like, visibly rigid when they're talking to him, and they, like, speak in these really, like, short clipped phrases, and Anton Yelchin's like, hey, man, whatever, like, I'm offering you drug experiences that you'll treasure for the rest of your lives, or whatever the fuck he says. Like,
yeah, something like that.
It's, like, so totally, like, opposite, like, everybody around him, and it's so clear. So, okay, so that scene in the pool where they're taking turns holding their breath. What's up with that scene?
I think it was showing you more of the sociopathic girl's character because we have shown that she has such a huge control of her body, like how she could just like make herself cry by repeating what the body usually does.
Right.
So she's doing that. She has such control over her body that she's trying to win that contest. She's holding her breath as long as possible. And then she kind of makes a mistake and does it for too long because she doesn't understand that it's scary. And so we just kind of see that she is incredibly reckless because she doesn't have any fear.
Okay, that's cool, except you have it backwards, though. Anya Taylor-Joy's character is the one who almost drowns underneath.
I cannot tell the difference between the two of them when they're underwater and their hair looks the same.
Okay, fair enough.
Is that me?
That's what's so weird about it.
Are you sure that was the wrong character?
No, I'm super duper sure.
Okay,
because I'm quite familiar with both of these actresses.
I misread that entire scene.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I applaud your efforts there.
I'm done talking about this movie. You're just
okay. But yeah, so I don't know. It's just weird because like it's showing that like Olivia Cooke's character like just comes up like pretty quickly. Like it's clear that she's pretty bad at holding her breath. And then Anya Taylor-Joy's character just like hangs out under there for too long and almost drowns. And it's like, why didn't you just come up? Like we like even see her like start to struggle and being like, oh no, like this, oh no good for me. But
okay, everything
I
just said except the opposite. She is staying down there because of her emotions, because she wants to win.
You know what? I think that's valid. Like the idea that like Olivia Cooke's character doesn't want to put herself under duress because she doesn't feel that competitive urge. Mm-hmm. So she comes up quicker, whereas Anya Taylor-Joy like wants to prove something, so she endangers herself in that way.
Yeah, I think it's foreshadowing.
Yeah. I think that's totally valid. And it's I don't know. I guess just my only concern is it's just like it's still just kind of weird that she just like stays down there until she almost drowns, but whatever. The next thing I've written down is just then there's the bit where the violin echoes the Horse Whinny, which I just can't get over. That's so cool to me. I don't know why. Another moment I wrote down because I thought it was funny is when she's like sitting down by herself in a room and she texts that guy and she's like, I heard you have pictures of the horse, ? Which I just think is pretty funny on its own.
Well, you just think the word horse is funny.
That's also true, but it's also just a slight, I don't know, I think it's funny. And so go ahead.
That scene where she is like describing how she killed the horse and why.
Yeah, man.
Is so good.
It's so good. And they don't have to show you like anything. This is,
No.
I think I've spoken about this before on the podcast, but it's similar to what they do in the Daredevil TV show, where if you have a person just telling a story, you don't have to do a whole lot, you know? Like, if it's interesting...
If the dialogue and visuals are good enough for what you're doing.
Yeah. In Daredevil, there's this priest character who's talking to Matt in this confessional booth, and he tells this whole story about when he was a missionary to some other place and talking about, like, warlords coming through and killing people. Am I maybe getting that story mixed up with the story that Michael Caine tells in Dark Knight? Perhaps. I don't remember which is which. But
maybe so.
But you know what? That also applies to that story as well. I'm pretty sure they just hold on Michael Caine for that whole story also. So doesn't matter. But yeah, if what they're talking about is interesting enough, and if the actor's performance is charismatic enough, you don't have to cut away and show people things. You can just let it sort of ruminate on them, and this is a great example of that.
Yeah, at Harry Potter in every single one.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, and then when they put that like sound bite of like a neck cracking at the end when they like finish the story, God, it's so good. God, it's so good.
Well, and like when you're telling the story, you do have to keep the viewer visually involved because it is a movie. It can't just be turned to a podcast for half a second. Right. But like they do that so well because they just do this slow zoom in on the girl's face as she's like telling the end of the story, and like it's so like visually stimulating. Like it's
totally
a very good choice.
Let's see. Around here is when we get to the point where they're like starting to actually put into action their plan to kill the stepdad, and they have Anton Yelchin's character show up, and they're just like so fucking terrible to him.
Oh, yeah.
They are, like, blackmailing him and bribing him and just, like, telling him to figure shit out whenever he's like, but I'll get caught. And they're just like, not our problem.
Well, he's also, a child rapist, Jackson.
Yeah. Well, okay, it's not quite that simple. He had consensual sex with a younger person.
Yeah, it's still shitty.
It is still shitty. I'm just saying, like, he's not a child molester.
Is he though?
Okay, whatever.
Yeah. I'm saying he's a shitty dude and he deserves to be framed for murder.
That is true. But okay. I don't think it's very helpful for anybody to
be framed for murder.
To inflate the crimes of somebody regardless of how shitty a person they are. That's messed up.
At OG Simpson.
OG Simpson?
OJ, not OG. No, because he didn't get in for the murder, but then he did some burglary, and they're like, well, we're gonna give you a whole bunch of more time than we usually get for burglary because I think that you killed that person, and they sent him to jail for a long time. And I don't think that's fair.
Wait, what? Start over. I was... Start that sentence
over. No, I'm not explaining the O.J. Simpson trial to you.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Anton Yelchin's character still.
No.
And I was like, wait a minute. Whatever. I hate this podcast.
Okay, cool, good.
Yeah, but this is one of those scenes that's like an absolute, like, straight out of a play, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's all just a singular location with 3 characters, and they're just talking to each other. And there's not anything particularly, like, dynamic happening in terms of, like, physical movement, but, like, it's just, it rests entirely on the talent of the actors and the cinematographer framing it, you know? Mm-hmm. And not to mention the production design, too. This movie is so, like, most of it is set in this big, gorgeous, like, mansion, and it's just so pretty to look at all the way through. Mm-hmm. And the costumes, like, it's just such a lavishly... decorated movie, you know?
Yeah, it's very visually interesting, even when the camera is not moving. Like, the sets are just so easy to look at.
Right. Okay, the one moment where I think this movie gets really hammy and they definitely lose me is when, basically, Anya Taylor-Joy's character is at a spa, and she knows that while she's there, Anton Yelchin is going to kill her stepdad. And when she looks down at her toes, the woman who's painting her toes is the stepdad for a second.
Oh, is it? I didn't see that.
Oh, were you just, like, not paying attention? Yeah, so,
no,
like...
I was watching it. I was just like, yep, that's what happens at the spa. Are you sure that happens?
Yeah, so she's getting her toes painted. She looks down, and her stepdad is the one painting her toes. And then she, like, closes her eyes for a second, and then it's just, like, a regular, like, spa lady that's doing her toes afterwards.
Are you sure that
Yeah,
happened?
I'm super sure. You must have just not been looking at the screen for just the right moment.
I don't remember seeing any of the people, because I had a thought, and I was like, oh, who does the person look like? And then they never showed the person.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to edit most of this out because it's going to take me a minute to find it, but I'm going to put on screen capture on Discord.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you.
Oh, I guess it fucking is him.
Okay,
that
so there's
sucks.
the stepdad. Yep.
That.
And then it's her. See?
That's weird.
Yeah, no, it's not very good.
This scene might have lost me a little bit before they did that stupid
right,
thing.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, hold on. How do I turn off screen share?
Yeah, they didn't do anything particularly interesting when she's at the spa and she's expecting for her stepdad to be murdered at any second. I thought they would do something really cool, but they kind of just, like, didn't, and so they kind of lost me for a second.
Yeah.
Where I was just like...
You don't think the stepdad just showing up at the spa was cool?
It's not cool. It was cool in that it ended the tension for thinking that he was going to die during the visit. And it brought in a new tension that was that does he know, blah, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's the whole scene where she's just, like, at the spa is a little bit boring and uninteresting because they don't do anything interesting with it. And then, yeah, when he does show up, that's really interesting because it's introducing a new problem. It's introducing something new. It's not adding to what we already have, you know?
Right.
It's not resolving what we already have.
And this, I was going to say, the first time I saw this movie, I thought for sure that the stepdad had, like, killed Anton Yelchin. I thought that Anton Yelchin had, like, broken in and he had, like, killed him and now he's at the spa because he knows. And I was like, oh, they're so fucked. Everyone's so fucked. But then it's, like, not that. I love this movie.
Yeah, he just chickened out and took his gun back.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't have a whole lot more notes on this.
I like how at the very, very end of the movie, just real quick, split second, right at the end, they decide to dunk on millennials real quick.
Yeah. No, okay, so that's the last thing that I have written down. There's, okay, actually, before we touch on that, I just want to go back a second and talk about the bit where Olivia Cooke gets told there's a roofie in her drink and then
guzzles
just chugs it. Because she just kind of wants to see what Anya Taylor-Joy is going to do. And it's wild. It's so good. And there's, like, this long... It's, like, probably about a 60-second shot that's just Olivia Cooke sleeping on a couch. Mm-hmm. And Anya Taylor-Joy, like, gets up. And there's, like, this really slow zoom happening the whole time. And then, like, 45 seconds later, she comes back just, like, covered in blood and starts, like, wiping it all over her. It's so crazy. But, yeah, so right at the end, Olivia Cooke gets sent to jail, basically. Yeah. And there's this really weird line that they go through where it's like, this is the letter that she's sending back, where they talk about it. Basically, like, imagine a really ham-fisted monologue at the end of a movie where they're, like, talking really explicitly. They're, like, talking really explicitly about all the themes of the movie in, like, a really teacher canon-y way. Except that the themes that they're talking about are not at all the themes of the movie.
Well, it's the dramatic spotlight at the end of the play where they go, I'll have another coffee.
Like,
Man.
it's like this weird monologue lifted out of a different story and put in this one. They're like, everyone's so absorbed in their cell phones that they all just die and the horses take over. And you're like, what the fuck? This movie didn't even have a cell phone in it.
Well, okay, because she is talking about her time in the asylum, and she's a sociopath, and we know that. And she's like, it's not that bad here. The people are nice. I'm basically just fucking with the people who are trying to diagnose me because we both know that I didn't actually murder the dad.
Right.
Blah, 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 all this stuff. And she's like, I have a dream where we're in your living room and you're screaming at me that I have a horse head, and I try to tell you that I don't, but I only whinny. And, like, that's really cool. That's
right.
a theme. That brings up the idea that maybe even her subconscious is guilty, and she's not. And then she has a second, then she's like, I also have another dream that, fuck millennials and horses rule the world.
I also have a dream where kids these days just can't stay off their dang phones.
Yeah, and they're gonna ruin society as a whole because they're too busy on the Facebooks.
Right.
And it's like, you are 16. You should hate yourself right now for saying that.
Just like, why, like, what was that?
Yeah.
It's such like a weird blink and you'll miss it moment, right? It's just like,
what?
Excuse me?
Yeah. Just like a real quick dunk. I don't even know why.
Yeah.
Like, this whole movie seems so, like, not... when you have a story about teenagers, it can either be very, like, oh, teenagers today, or it can be very just like, this is a story about teenagers. And it was very much like, oh, this is just a story about teenagers. But then they just slipped a quick one, like, right at the end. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
I'm trying to think if there are any other moments I want to touch on before we start to kind of wrap up.
That the end line of this movie, I think, is really interesting, where basically the guy, she runs into the rapist guy again, and he's like, well, what did the letter say? And she's like, I don't know, I just threw it away. And then the movie ends. And I like that line because she's either lying or she's telling the truth, and both are very interesting.
Yeah, no, and it implies that, like, even though she's the one who's not a sociopath, she's the one who's just not caring, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, she can't be bothered to read the letter, you know? She doesn't care anymore.
Yeah. Or she did read the letter, and she's just like, hey, screw you, guy. But that's, yeah.
I don't know. I'll never tell.
I'll never tell. It's my little secret. Bye.
So, yeah, okay. So, general thoughts, Adeline. Thoroughbreds. Go.
This movie is a really cool concept. It's executed very well. The cinematography is just so gorgeous and cool. The story is very interesting and develops in a very suspenseful and original and cool way. Yeah, it's just a really good movie. It dunks on millennials real quick at the end. Before that, it's, like, really, really cool and really, really good. This
was one of the movies that came out... I think it debuted in festivals in 2017, but it came out in, like, general in 2018. Yeah. And it was one of the movies that I was, like, sort of surprised that, like, nobody was really talking about it. That's part of the reason why I brought it today, was because I just wanted to tell people about it, because it's really good and nobody's seen it, and I want people to see it because I like it a lot. It's this movie that totally slipped under the radar, and I just felt like we totally moved on to the next thing, and I was sitting there like, hey, wait, like, this was rad, come back. Like, yeah. I really liked this one. It's one of, like, 4 movies from last year that would have been great Oscar movies if they had just tried to be an Oscar movie at all. Yeah. Like, this same year, Hereditary and 8th Grade also came out, which would have been big-time Oscar movies, but they all came out, like, in the summer, and they had, like, no campaigning whatsoever for any Oscar stuff, and so they just didn't get anything. And it was like, you could have though. And, like, I don't know, and last year was, like, the worst Oscar year ever, so there was nothing good. It's your fault, Thoroughbreds, and for that I hate you.
I was gonna say sorry. Oh, we should have Keisha on to talk about Hereditary.
No,
because she walked out of it in the movie theater.
By the way, I was about to just start talking about what we should do in the future on the podcast, but I realized that should be something I should talk to you about when we're not recording the podcast.
Yeah, I know what I want to do for mine next week, but we can talk about it.
Okay.
Do you have a secondary?
Do you want to
thing?
almost talk about something we don't want to talk about a couple more times before we move
Yeah,
on?
let's go. I'm too close to my microphone.
So yeah, Thoroughbreds. 8 out of
Good.
10. Should
A
we start
good
doing
movie.
that? Should we start having a numerical rating at the end?
12
Every
out
time.
of 4 Star Treks.
Give it 1.5 enthusiastic thumbs up. I give it 1 thumb up and 1 finger guns. And I wink
I'm
at
flipping
it.
it off, but like in like a positive, like friendly, like
Yeah.
hey, kind of flipping
It's
it
like
off.
kind of like, hey, what's up? Like, fuck you.
Yeah, like
you
we're
know?
buddies, we know each other.
It's like, it's cool because we're so close, you know? That's what makes it
Yeah.
fun.
The
I give this
loving
movie a
finger.
friendly fuck you.
Yeah, a friendly bird.
When I'm a professional film critic, I'm gonna come up with my own super whack rating system that's
Yep.
like all based on hand gestures. Like the highest is like an enthusiastic 2 thumbs up, and the lowest is like the up yours motion, you know,
Yeah,
where you like put your arm on your
Yeah.
bicep,
yeah.
implying that you're like gonna put your fist up their
Flex.
butthole.
Yeah.
That's the worst you can get. And in the middle, there's just like a whole bunch of like, I give it.
One of them is the bird with the sound.
I give this one 2 finger guns and a wink.
I don't like the wink. The wink's bad.
I give this one an SOS that I'm blinking out in Morse code.
I give this one a please help me.
I give this one a this is not a joke. I am being held hostage. Please send help.
You will never find a body. 401-45-3729. Raccoon, Foxtrot, Tango.
I like especially
Pretty
that
good.
raccoon is not a member of the phonetic alphabet, so it's like this weird extra part of the code. It's
Yeah.
like extra steps to decoding. So, do you want to go first with your secondary thing, or do you want me to?
I could go first.
Okay.
My secondary. Cut that out.
Start over.
No. Yes, please do. Alright. My
Just say,
secondary-
hi, my name's Adeline, and this is my secondary thing, and then continue. That's what you should do.
For my secondary thing this week.
You can
or
put some
this-
spin on it if you want. You can, like, put some of your own, like, personal flair in it. That's what people are really looking for when they're, like, doing job interviews or auditions. Is, like, something that's unique to you, even through the sort of professional veil, you know? Okay, try again.
What's up, fuckers? This week we're playing Minecraft.
Is that your secondary
Episode
thing, Minecraft?
358.
Are you going to talk about Minecraft this week?
No, I'm not gonna talk about Minecraft.
Okay.
I'm not spending 30. Okay.
That was perfect.
Quick
Continue.
thing. I want to play Minecraft so badly, but I just like can't get myself to spend $30 on Minecraft. You know.
Yeah, I feel
And
ya.
then apparently it was on sale for $10 for the 10-year anniversary, and I didn't know that, and now I can't do it anymore. And now I'm like, oh, I don't want to spend $30 on Minecraft.
Right. What's up with this weird Minecraft renaissance we're living through all
I
of a
am
sudden,
so down.
by the
It's
way?
because Minecraft is a really good game.
It is a really good game.
Even though the guy who made it is an anti-Semite, but everything else is great.
Right.
Death of the artist. And by that I mean I'm gonna kill him.
I'm gonna kill Mojang. No, that's the name of the company. What's his name?
No, Notch.
Notch. That's a stupid name.
It is a stupid name. He's a stupid man.
He has a candy room in his house, though.
Yeah, no, did you hear that all of the candy in that room goes rotten, like, all the time?
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's the life.
this has been the roast of Notch.
Do you think he's somebody's stepdad?
Probably. Seems like the Notch material. Anyway, alright. My secondary thing. The thing that I'm doing. There we go. Me and my family, we've watched The Good Place, Season 1. Not Season 2, because I haven't watched that one. But yeah. So, The Good Place, I keep wanting to say Good Omens, and I haven't seen Good Omens yet. The Good Place is this TV show that is about this woman who dies and goes to what is basically heaven. They don't subscribe to a specific religion or way of thinking. They're like, this is the quote-unquote good place, and there's also a quote-unquote bad place, which I really respect, and they handle it in a very good way. They also make jokes about it, which is fun. But, so she dies and she goes to the good place, and, like, throughout the first episode, you kind of realize, well, she realizes, first of all, that she is not supposed to be there, and they have mistaken her identity, and she's supposed to be in the bad place. And that's a really interesting concept. But what I was afraid before actually watching the show was that I thought it was going to be very predictable. I thought it was going to be just like... I knew that they were going to be teaching her to be good so she could stay there, and I thought there would be like a comedy based around that, and like that's the end goal, and that would be the end of it. But they totally don't do that. They totally go in their own original way and do a bunch of really cool original stuff, and that it ends up being a totally different experience than I expected, and it's really good. Because the show does start off with them trying to teach her how to be a good person, but then you kind of realize that all of the bad things that she does end up doing, because she's a bad person in the good place, end up kind of destroying the good place. And then there's all these other twists and turns that happen, and she does start to become a good person, but she still doesn't belong there. And it's this really cool theological discussion and this discussion about morality. And it's a really good show. And it's on Netflix. It's really easy to watch. Is it on Netflix? It might be on Hulu.
I think it's on Netflix.
It's on one of them. It's on one of them. But yeah, it's really good, and I would totally recommend checking it out. It's very funny and also very good. Yeah. And that's why I really like it.
I gotta watch TV. I feel like I say this all the time. I'm so bad at watching television.
No, me too.
I don't know. Hour-long dramas especially. I just... I can't, like, dedicate that much time to something, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, every other person in the world watches television while they're, like, doing something else.
Yeah.
And, like, I guess it's just, like, my sort of film student active watching personality that it's like, I want to pay attention. Like, I want to absorb everything that this has to offer to me, and I want to, like, be present for the experience.
Yeah, I don't want to, like... With podcasts and stuff, you can just put it on in the background because there's only one part of it that you need to pay attention to. But, like, with a show or a movie, it's like, well, I either have to, like, pay attention to it or not pay attention to it. Like, there's no in between.
Yeah. But, you know, I think if I'm going to watch television, that's just something I'm just going to have to accept. I'm going to have to do it while I'm doing other things, and I'm not going to be, like, present and engaged 100% of the time. But that's okay, though, because every television show in the world gets boring eventually. So
yeah. No, like, I really want to watch Good Omens, and it's the same kind of thing where each episode is an hour long. And there's only, like, 6 episodes. Yeah. But I was like, man, that's 6 hours.
I know. And I know that's, like, on the shorter end of the spectrum.
I know. Like, that's a very short TV show. But I'm like... It's also just me that if I can't sit down and watch the whole thing, I struggle to come back to it just because I have a short attention span. So even if I really like it, I'll struggle to like come back and sit down for it more.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, when it's like, oh, it's 6 hours long, it's like, oh, that means I can watch it for like 3 hours and then
probably
that's
never
it,
come back
and then
to
I have to come back to it. Yeah.
No, I did like exactly that with Good Omens. When I was in Salt Lake City, I watched the first 2 episods and I was like, tight, this is fun. I'll probably finish this off. It's nice and short. Just never did. Just didn't do it. Yep. I mean, I don't know. I still might, but
well, it even sucks with longer things. Like I haven't finished the Adventure Zone, and like I know the full story of the Adventure Zone. I'm still in the stolen century of the Adventure Zone because I just can't sit down and finish it. Like I'm the worst.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what TV shows I've like actually watched front to back since, I don't know, Doctor Who. When I was in middle school.
We dropped off of that Doctor Who train quite a while ago.
Daredevil and Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
I watched the whole first season of Luke Cage. I think that's pretty much it. I think I maybe only watch Netflix Marvel television.
I watched all the first season of She-Ra. I have yet to come back for the second season, though, so that just...
Oh, Series of Unfortunate Events. I devoured Series of Unfortunate Events.
Yep, I watched the first season of it. And I'm behind again.
Yeah, man. Series of Unfortunate Events
I watched all of Steven Universe. I watched all of Steven Universe.
Right. I got 2 seasons into Breaking Bad. And, like, okay, I know this isn't, like, a hot take, but Breaking Bad's really fucking good.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I just said a minute ago, how, like, every TV show in the world is boring sometimes?
Yeah.
That hasn't happened yet with Breaking Bad at the beginning of the third season. Like, literally every episode is, like, so stuffed to the brim of, like, true and genuine, like, engaging content that it's, like, I don't know how, like, I don't know, I guess I'm not hugely television literate, but to me it seems, like, unprecedented, like, how good Breaking Bad is in terms of, like, a television show. It's wild. Anyway, do you want to hear about my thing?
Yeah, what's your thing?
Do you want me to talk about a TV show that I started watching that I haven't finished yet?
Sure, go.
Okay, so I finally decided to take the plunge and get my HBO subscription in an effort to make myself watch more television. And the first one that I started out with is a show called Barry. It's another dark comedy. That Bill Hader stars in. He plays what's the word I'm looking for? An ex-military hitman who decides he wants to be an actor instead. And it's really good because, you know, at the beginning of the movie he's a hitman. He's killing people. He's like doing all that thing. But it's starting to like really take a toll on him, and he gets booked to do this job in LA. And he has to kill this guy who's, like, in an amateur acting class. And so he just, like, sits in on this amateur acting class to sort of, like, scope him out. And he's like, oh, this looks really fun and cool. I think I want to do this instead of killing people for money.
That's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. And I don't know, it's really interesting because, like, there's a lot of really fleshed out characters in it. Specifically, Stephen Root, the guy who plays, like, Bill on King of the Hill and the blind guy in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. He's like one of my favorite character actors. He plays sort of Bill Hader's boss, who's like, you can't just be an actor. You have to keep being a hitman. That's Stephen Root. And what's his name? I just want to call him Barry Zuckercorn because that's the name of his character on Arrested Development. The guy who played Fonzie, and he was John Ralphio's dad.
He played Fonzie?
Yeah, he played Fonzie.
I just know nothing about Fonzie is what I'm learning about the world.
God damn it, what's his name? No, yeah, he's got a crazy character arc when he was like the coolest, suavest guy in the world, and then he hit like 50 and all of a sudden he started playing like weirdly creepy old man.
Yeah.
He's, god damn it. But he plays the theater teacher. Hold on. Fonzie. Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is his name. But he plays the acting teacher, and he has a lot of really great moments. And, you know, it's just totally his type of character. Yeah, he's like this guy who's like really friendly, but like weirdly pathetic and kind of creepy at the same time. you know? But yeah, and it's just wonderful. And it's one of the only pieces of like media about show business I can think of that takes acting seriously as a profession, you know? Like, it feels like whenever you see actors on TV, or I mean, characters who are actors in film or television, they're mostly just sort of a vehicle for inside jokes. About, it's either like inside jokes about acting written by actors, or like the directors dunking on actors.
Yep.
But like this show like really takes the idea of like people living in LA and working really hard to have a career in acting. Like they take it really seriously and they develop them really strongly as characters. Don't get me wrong, there are some in-jokes about actors still, but it's
they don't get rid of that.
Yeah, it's still like a very like the characters are all very genuine in that way, which I really appreciate.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure whatever jokes they're making are true of real life as well.
Right. And, you know, I took acting classes all through high school and through community college, so I've got sort of a reference point for, like, what acting classes are like in general.
Yeah.
And it makes you really realize when you're, like, seeing things through Bill Hader's perspective how weirdly obtuse it is to somebody who's just walking in fresh, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, all these things about like accessing emotions, and they do this exercise where they're like, okay, so you're in a grocery store. It's like trying to like delve into the psyche of this character, you know. And they're like, okay, Bill Hader, you're like in the grocery store. You're walking down the aisle. What do you see on the shelves? And he's like, what do you mean? What do I see on the shelves? I can't. Why? That's not my. I don't know where I am. I don't know what part of the store I'm in. It's like, no, you have to make a decision. You have to know, like, what do you see on the shelves? What's your character see on the shelves? It's like, well, he would see what anybody would see on the shelves. Like, what do you mean? You know, like, And it's really interesting the way they sort of like dissect like the acting process through the lens of this guy who's a professional hitman. Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, it's just a great show, and the best part about it is that they are half-hour episodes, which is my favorite thing in the world. And that's why I really like it. It's called Barry, and it's on the home box office, HBO.
Is it Barry?
Yes, it is. He's a super awesome guy.
All right.
Hey, Adeline, do you want to hear a 1-star review of the film Thoroughbreds?
After that, yes.
Great. I would love to read it to you, except that the thumbprint scanner on my phone doesn't work, and it's not letting me in. Okay, there we go. One moment.
Except that my phone has been thrown down a toilet, and I have no longer have any access to it.
Okay, this review, he gives Thoroughbreds 1/2 of a star. It's from Letterboxd user Oakleyes. Oakleyas. Oakleyas.
Oakleyas.
This person says, hated this film. Also, I was almost stabbed in the theater while watching it.
Where were you, sir?
It's like, I don't know if that affected his judgment of the film.
Yeah.
If he's just rating his theater-going experience.
Like, if he almost got stabbed during, like, Toy Story, would he be like, Toy Story fucking sucks, man?
Also was almost stabbed.
Also.
My name is Jackson McMurray.
My name is Adeline McMurray.
And this has been No Nerds Allowed.
And they're going, they're running away, they're screaming, and the nerds are gone.
Great.
Shut up. Why can't you just yes and me?
They just gotta get out of here before we almost stab them.
Yeah. In a theater while they're watching Thoroughbreds.